This Raw Green episode is brought to you by Obi, a sustainability consultancy firm specialized in life cycle assessment and decarbonization strategies. For more information, check oneob.com or visit our page on social media. Links in the description. All right, welcome to a new episode of Raw Green. It is my immense pleasure to have here as a guest Mr. Ivo Pitanguy, right from Brazil. So today we fly to Brazil and we talk with a very, very, very nice person with a very interesting story that work for a very interesting company that he actually founded. So, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ivo Pitanguy. Ciao, Ivo. How are you?
Hi, pretty good, Francesco. How are you doing, my friend? Long time.
Very, very good. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you in Brazil,
Merry
in a
Christmas.
warm Brazil.
Buon Natale.
Buon
No,
Natale.
it's 40 degrees.
40
Pretty
degrees.
warm around here.
You got
Yeah, I have
Santa in a
my
swimwear coming to you
exactly,
in flip flops.
exactly. Exactly. In Havaianas.
In Havaianas.
Yeah.
Talk about global
Awesome.
warming.
Wow.
Look,
Exactly. Yeah.
Ivo, I'm
Renewables.
very
We
happy
need.
to have you here. I wanted to ask you. I have like a million questions to ask you about. Why don't we start slowly? We basically, when I was in Brazil 12 years ago, you were in Rome, if I remember correctly, working with a private equity firm, investing in renewables, and now you are the founder and the CEO of Nextron Energia. Why don't you tell me what happened in the past 12 years before we go through Nextron?
That's true story. It sounds like I'm pretty old right now, and I feel pretty old. But
You don't look like.
yeah, it's been a long time since we started the renewable energy adventure.
Yeah.
Started in Rome, as you mentioned, in 2011, 2012, when renewables was really picking up in Europe with all the feed-in tariffs from different countries, and it was a very important school for me, given the amount of penetration that renewable energy already had and the maturity of the market, which really helped me kind of bring back my this competitive advantage back to Brazil, which was a very immature market, and now it's growing exponentially. But yeah, Europe was a very important school for me to learn, and the exposure that I had with Foresight Group, which today is one of the largest private equity fund focused on renewable infrastructure projects in Europe and in the world, actually. So yeah, very very happy to have started my career at Foresight, and now 12 years after, having my own company, my own startup, renewable energy climate tech startup here in Brazil, and with the mission to democratize renewable energy and simplify access to renewable energy in Brazil. And let's see about the world next.
How did you come up with that idea? So, if I understood properly, and then I'll let you give a proper intro and overview about Nextron. But if I understood correctly, in a nutshell, you basically developed a methodology and a system to build PPA for residential and commercial at a lower scale than, let's say, a conventional PPA quantities, okay, or size. Is that correct? Is that a correct assumption?
Yeah, yeah. In a nutshell, what we basically did is we developed proprietary software that connects renewable energy projects, investors, to the end energy consumer, right? Be it residential or small commercial, basically any consumer that has a consumption above around 200 kilowatt a month in average. So, very uh, uh, small granulated profile.
Mm.
And we were able to create this proprietary software under our own interface that simplifies the access, giving the energy user a alternative, right, to building their own rooftop. So basically, you can have the benefit and the savings of solar without having to invest in your own solar rooftop. So we already have the projects remotely built in the DG program here in Brazil, which is kind of similar to the community solar program in the US or the virtual net
Okay.
metering in Europe. And so we're able to connect this remote um, energy plant, renewable energy plant, to the end energy consumer without them having to change their energy service provider in a very seamless, frictionless manner. In 5 clicks, the energy user can have the renewable energy from our farms virtually and guarantee and have a guarantee of up to 20% savings every month on their energy bill, knowing
Wow.
that it's 100% renewable and that they don't have any real friction to do that. And then once the energy consumer signs up with Nextron, which is basically a solar uh, a subscription product, it's like a Netflix, right?
Okay.
You basically sign up and then you start receiving the energy, the Nextron energy bill. So you don't have to pay the utility bill anymore. You pay the Nextron utility bill, and then we pay the utility whatever is owed to the utility. There's some fixed cost, so that because you're still connected to the grid, you have to pay some small fixed cost. So we pay the utility, and we become your only interface now with energy as an energy service provider, and that's really the value add that we bring, and that's our value prop to the energy consumer. On the other side, the energy producer, right? We have also an application focused on the energy producer, where we are kind of responsible to monetize and give the investor a return on their investment, right? So we're
Mm.
able to tap in the regulated energy market, which is the highest energy tariff in Brazil, and a very diversified and retail kind of investment profile. So we're able to minimize risk by really granulating and diversifying our off-taker risk through residential and small commercial and small. So it's very small concentration risk. And so we're able
Hmm.
to generate a very attractive return on capital, which is superior to any other way they would sell energy, renewable energy in Brazil. So we really give them a high return
You can imagine.
option,
Yeah.
right, to monetize their renewable energy into the regulated retail market without having to build their own kind of proprietary platform to do that.
Yeah. That's phenomenal.
So it's
Both
kind of like
sides,
the
actually.
Uber of energy, right? Yeah, we're
Okay.
kind of the
Yeah.
Uber
Yeah.
of
That's
renewable
clear.
energy. So basically, we're totally asset light, right? We don't own any energy plant. So the mission is to become the largest renewable energy platform in Brazil without being owner of a
Yeah,
single energy
same
plant.
model of Uber, Airbnb, and others, where you, let's say, the biggest hospitality without actually owning hotels or properties. Yeah, it's a beautiful business model. My question is, those, if I can dig in a little bit more into the technicalities, how do you make sure that that kilowatt hour that is being produced from one of the solar power plants, renewable energy power plants, get dispatched and transmitted to the residential owner, that kilowatt hour, or that comes from a renewable source, because you have to pass through the national grid. So how do you make sure that that happens?
Yeah, great question. So basically, in Brazil, there are many different utilities which own concessions. So they operate certain utility territories in Brazil. There's about 60 in Brazil, but in large states, there's about 30 of them.
Hmm.
which Enel from Italy is here,
Yeah.
EDP is here, Iberdrola
Yeah.
from Spain are here. So there's many different groups that own many different utility territories, and they operate these utility territories by operating their local grid, right? So
Yeah.
when I have a project that is connected to, let's say, an Enel grid in Rio, for example, part of Rio is Enel Rio. Um, I'm connected to the grid in Enel, and I can only distribute these credits, right? These energy credits in that same territory, right? So I'm limited to distributing those energy credits in the same utility area where the project is connected to.
Okay.
So that's the first point. And then in accordance to a certain law in Brazil, which is law 14,300, it says that the utility is responsible uh, to basically systemize and count the amount of kilowatt hour that's being injected in that interconnection point in their grid that they operate.
Okay.
And that energy is then transferred into credits. They're generated They generate credits, which is 1 to 1, so 1 kilowatt hour for one currency, 1 real,
Hmm.
right? And then the utility is then obligated to compensate these credits in the energy bill of the client that I told them to compensate these credits. So they
Okay.
compensate these credits in the energy bill, but then I receive the energy bill. I make sure that those credits were actually accounted for. And if
Hmm.
it's okay, then I send my bill with the generated savings from that kind of compensated credits. And then the energy user pays me, and I pay the utility whatever that fixed cost is.
Which I
So
assume this
in
is all
essence, the utility.
automatized
Go ahead. Go ahead.
in your algorithm, in your software. Sorry, this has been all
It's
automatized
all
backend.
automated.
Yes.
Yeah, it's all automated, all digitized, all systematized. We have a bunch of algorithms that are doing this energy balance, right, to optimize the savings on one side for the customer and optimize the return on the investment on the project side. So we do this energy balance every month. We kind of become a virtual digital utility, right? It's
Mm.
kind of the same job that the utility does. But the interesting thing is that the since the energy consumer is connected to the grid, still connected to their same energy service provider, they don't have energy risk. So they're never going to stay without energy. Even if something happens with the plant, they're still connected to the grid, and
Yeah.
automatically the utility will understand that there's no energy coming from that plant, and they're going to send them energy anyway. So
And then
the
Nextron
utility
and the
is still kind of
utility.
the clearinghouse.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, the
Exactly.
utility is still the
That's the part.
clearinghouse
Clearinghouse.
for
Yeah.
all of this.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
for the
That's
credits.
fantastic, Ivo. That's
But we become the
fantastic.
interface, right? We become the interface. So now the client, the consumer sees Nextron, right? And now Nextron has the client, and we become kind of the sustainability energy as a service, let's say, or sustainability as a service provider for this consumer.
That's very very interesting. And are the utilities happy to work with you?
Not really. The utilities don't have much choice,
Yeah.
since it's a law that came in place after a long period of negotiation with the
Mm.
utilities and the lobbies, and it was kind of a compromise, because really it's the future of the energy sector in Brazil and in the world. Actually, utilities really need to focus on um, operating the grid more and more efficiently, right, and less on the kind of commercialization of energy and the generation part, and leave that to the private markets to kind of regulate themselves and kind of focus on the grid, which is kind of the last mile service
Hmm.
to the to the energy consumers, which they can't stay without energy, so they really depend on the grid and the utility to kind of operate this efficiently, and with technology, smart grids and smart meters, and all this kind of infrastructure is very important for the
Yeah. Plus
utility to provide,
the
right? But the
utilities.
generation.
Yeah. The utilities are also generators, so they also play these two roles. I mean, I
Yeah,
remember
exactly.
Enel Green Power in South America. it is one of the biggest developers of both solar and wind. So they also have these double sides, which it is what you're offering. Well, it is phenomenal for me personally. I hate bureaucracy, so if I have to switch to an energy provider and you do everything for me, the first thing I'm going to do is hugging you. I'm going to give you a hug. Besides,
Exactly.
regardless of the
A
savings,
strong hug.
yes,
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
gonna thank
Uh,
you.
Yeah, yeah, because at the end of the day, you're incentivizing um, renewable energy, right?
Mm,
That's a fact. And the second thing is that now instead of bending yourself to the monopolies, right, you have an option to
yeah,
have better service at a lower cost. So
yeah,
it's better service at a lower cost, which is basically a no-brainer, right?
yeah. It is, and that plus you have the accessibility that it is available on an app, right? So it is
Exactly. Yeah,
on,
it's
on
totally
on the palm of
digital.
your hand. Yeah, it is fantastic.
Exactly.
Let me
Yeah,
ask
exactly.
you,
We have the application on iPhone and on Android, so yeah, it's all
fantastic.
fully available digitally.
Let me ask you something on the production on the generation side. So I'm pretty sure you're aware that new renewable installations skyrocketed during 2023, basically all over the world, even in Italy. The problem that basically every country has, it is the backbone of everything, which is the grid, the transmission grid. My curiosity it is that I don't hear much talking about Brazil, because Brazil, it is for a technical reason, it is one of the grid with the lowest carbon intensity you can have on the planet right now, because of the hydro generation of Itaipu. But I assume with let's say the exponential connection to the grid of this new solar, wind, and other renewables power plants, uh, perhaps also in Brazil, you are walking through very long connection time to get connected to the grid, paperworks. I mean, I heard stories of connection time waiting list for 5 years for wind power plants or solar power plants waiting to get connected to the grid. So my question is it happening in Brazil too, or it is a little bit better than it is happening in Europe generally and the US?
That's a very good question, Francisco, and that's a very long conversation. We can do a podcast only on that
Only
subject.
on this.
But but yeah, but basically to summarize, I think Brazil is very well endowed in terms of geography, of course, right? Natural resources, and also in terms of the integration of the national grid, right? Different than other countries, U.S. especially, that has several different ISOs, right? It's not an integrated grid. In Brazil, you have a fully national integrated grid, right? Transmission wise,
Hmm.
so that really helps in terms of economies of scale, investments, and logistics as well. So I think that's one point. We have one agency that regulates the entirety
Hmm.
of it, and it's less fragmented, right? It's more centralized, which is good. It can also be bad because politics plays a huge role, but
Yeah, I can imagine.
otherwise, it's there's a certain organization behind that, right? So the centralization is good, can be bad, but now majority of the reasons now it's pretty favorable. So that's the transmission, right? Transmission, and what you are referencing to are the utility scale plants, which are
Hmm.
connected to these transmission
Yeah,
grids.
yeah.
And the transmission in Brazil, of course, um, Brazil is very endowed, but at the same time, there's a lot of challenges. Brazil has a challenging geography as well, because it's very uh, 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 nature. It's very abundant in nature-wise. So you really to build these transmission lines, it takes a while. There's a whole environmental agency and impact,
Yeah,
right?
surface
So
rights,
there's a lot of
municipalities, yeah, you
surface
have to deal
rights.
with. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I
there's
know. It can, it's a nightmare.
a lot of
Yeah, yeah,
bureaucracy,
yeah,
a lot of bureaucracy around that. Brazil is it's a continental country, right? It's a huge
yeah.
country, so you need to have a lot of investments. So it depends also on the global kind of investment scenario, right? So you need to bring local development banks. So that comes into what's the cost of capital, what are the interest rates locally, what are the returns to the investments, for how do we bring foreign investment. So there's a whole challenge over there because it's very capital intensive. And so there's that. Um, Now, the interesting thing is that DG, which is not on the transmission level, it's on the distribution level, which is closer to the inside the utility territories, is that the penetration of renewables in Brazil, the interesting thing is that 70% is DG and 30% is utility scale.
Oh,
So
wow.
very different than any other country in the world. There's more DG in solar, not renewable, solar. Sorry,
Mm-hmm.
solar. There's more DG than um, than utility scale, and solar represents the second uh, in ranking the second most penetrated energy source in Brazil's energy
After
matrix.
Hydra.
Right. So you
Yeah,
have hydro, hydro representing a 50 to 60%, and then solar representing 15 to 20%, and then you have wind and biomass and the rest.
and
So
others.
there's a
Uh,
huge penetration of intermittent energy, right, which is the renewable energy, but hydro is not part of that. Hydro is like the base load of Brazil, right? So it serves as a huge
yeah,
battery, let's say.
yeah,
Um, but the huge penetration in the DGs uh, lowers the need for the centralized utility projects, right? Because now you have these projects, which is DG, which is closer to the consumer, right?
yeah.
It's decentralized solar. Wind is not very decentralized, but solar is the more decentralized one. So you have a high penetration of DG, which gives you a lower demand for centralized energy. So that increases the time of that the grid actually projects and needs to have that energy from utility scale sources. And so the huge penetration of DG also brings a huge challenge, which is the intermittent energy, right, from solar or from small wind, let's say,
Mm-mm.
which in Brazil there's a very, very small penetration with a huge opportunity for energy storage, which I think is the next kind of big um, um, uh, uh, thing in Brazil in terms of
To do.
energy
Yeah,
penetration, which is build infrastructure with storage, energy storage, battery, whatever technology it is, in order to firm the grid, right? In order to
yeah.
actually uh,
Reduce the
uh,
intermittency. Yeah,
increase the potential, reduce intermittency, and increase the potential to have a even higher
yeah.
penetration of DG in Brazil. So of course, Brazil has, like many other countries, a very old kind of distribution network, which is a bit outdated. But with the penetration of DG, there has been a very important kind of incentive uh, to um, to update all the substations, to update the local grid,
Yes.
bring in the penetration, invest in smart meters, right? Which will, be Brazil has a very, very like 1% penetration of smart meters, so it's all
There's a
not
lot to do.
digitized either.
Yeah.
There's a lot to do. There's the smart grids that will come in, but I think that the energy storage is really like utility scale energy sources to help help as an ancillary services as well to the utilities. I think that's going to be very important in order to kind of uh, bring more robustness to the grid in itself.
What you just said to me comes as a surprise. I mean that you have that 70% DG. Because I always thought that Brazil would have been, and I jump some logic here, but I always thought that Brazil would have been a like an academic scenario for large utility scale generate power plants with state of the art HVDC transmission lines. You know that to build HVDC, you need to justify the cost, and also to justify the efficiency of HVDC. You need to have a minimum amount of transmission in terms of kilometers. Okay, now I don't know the exact figures, but what I remember is like 700 or over 1,000 kilometers to be able to do that. Which in Brazil it is like a daily commute. 1,000 kilometers, it is nothing. So
Mm-hmm.
what I thought about it, it is you already have the hydro, one of the largest, was the second largest hydro generation power plants in the world, which is, like you said, a massive battery that can help with the loads, with the intermittency from renewables. On the other hand, with you certainly have areas that are more prone and more optimized to develop power plants, whether it is solar or wind or any others. My point is, the HVDC, it is something that can help a lot to create energy hubs. If you don't have, like in other countries, uh, the problem, I mean, you do have it, but it is a little bit reduced, the intermittency, because you have that massive hydro generation capacity. Would it be worth to create those hubs, those energy hubs? I don't know, in the south, where you have wind, or in the north where you have massive sun radiation. In the north of Brazil, obviously, is it something worth? Is it something that, I don't know, you talk with the investors probably on a daily basis, and you know pretty well what is the best area to develop power plants in Brazil. Is it something worth thinking about it rather than going with the small non-utility scale power plants?
Um, yeah, that's an interesting question, and don't get me wrong. Like, I'm giving you the numbers for today, right? So today, as we speak, in terms of solar capacity
Yeah.
installed in Brazil, 70% is DG, 30% is utility scale. But that number
Mm,
is going to change in the next years. There's a lot of utility scale solar being built in Brazil,
okay. In
and
pipeline.
Brazil is
Okay. There
already
you go.
top. Yeah, in pipeline, there's huge amount of solar, especially in the Northeast, right?
Mm,
800 megawatt plants, 500 megawatt plants, and then
wow.
the transmission lines, the high tech transmission lines are being built because there's enough economies
Okay.
of scale for that, and also the hydros are not right. Hydros, there's no more hydros being built because of its environmental impact is very high. So
Massive.
it's
Yeah.
almost impossible to get permits for large hydro these days. So you have some small hydros being built
Mini.
because Brazil
Yeah.
has kind of a
Mini
favorable
hydro.
geography for that in the south and the southeast anyway. But the large plants are solar and wind, right? There's a lot of wind power farms being built in the northeast as well. You're starting the offshore winds in the south as well. So I have no doubt that utility scale renewable energy in Brazil will have much larger penetration than DG. But the growth lately in the past 5 years has been exponential for DG, also for the fact that the development cycle is much lower for
Shorter.
DG than for
Yeah.
utility scale. So
Yeah.
naturally, given the maturity of the market, naturally DG is ahead now of utility scale. But once one plant that two plants of 500 kilowatts, 500 megawatts connect, that game is probably going to change. But so there is huge investment. The development bank in Brazil has a special credit line just for renewable energy. So BNDES has a special line for
Yeah.
that. So yeah, that's a market that's growing a lot in Brazil. But at the end of the day, I think that the key for energy stability, energy resilience is diversification, right? So So you have to have a diversified energy matrix, be it
Yeah.
in different sources of energy and in different concentrations of energy, utility scale and decentralized energy. So centralized and decentralized energy need to have a certain representation so that we have grid resilience, and also the amount of power needed to power Brazil's growth. So
Yeah, to be dispatched. Yeah. Yeah.
Brazil has a very concentrated energy matrix these days. So historically Brazil depends on hydro, from 50 anywhere to 70% of the energy consumed in Brazil can come from hydro at any given time, and that's really bad for grid resilience, for energy price stability as well, because there's no rain, right, and we see that a lot
Yeah.
with climate impact and global warming and whatnot. You depend on turning on thermal and coal plants, and the energy being generated from these plants is not renewable, and it's much more expensive, and then that impacts the consumers directly, which in a given year they can be paying what 30 to 40% more in a given month than they were paying in the beginning of the year because of this concentration in hydro. So there's a fundamental kind of problem in Brazil, which is a concentration on a single power source, which now is changing, and
Yeah.
we're very bullish on, and we're trying to help the diversification with Nextron of the energy matrix in Brazil.
Talking about energy mix, is there any new renewable energy technology that you and your guys, your team at Nextron are looking for, are interested in?
Um, I mean, we're very focused on solar.
Mm,
Solar is an incredible technology already. It's gaining efficiency by minute, lowering price by minute. So it's I think there's still a very very large opportunity for solar in Brazil. Um, Very bullish on that. I think it's very scalable, low capex, very
yeah,
very small operational risks, small operational costs,
yeah,
very long uh, uh, asset life. So I mean, you know, it is the most adopted in the world as a renewable energy source, um, for a reason.
yeah. For a reason,
But
yeah,
I think that in Brazil, for a reason, but
yeah.
I think that Brazil, as I mentioned before, I think energy storage is probably the next big thing in Brazil, and BYD is very aggressive in Brazil these days.
Oh, really?
You can
Okay.
buy now, yeah, you can buy a electric car that already comes with the charger. They give you the charger for free. The car is now price of a popular car in Brazil. So they're very aggressive, building huge flagship stores everywhere. So I think it's going to become a huge market for electric, EV, and also battery energy storage, both um, on the consumer side and also on the utility scale side. So decentralized and utility scale storage, I
Yeah.
think, is probably the next big penetration in terms of infrastructure in Brazil.
They're doing, look, the Chinese, the EV manufacturers, they're doing great. BYD,
Yeah,
for sure. Well, I mean, unless the European Union will put tariffs on it, but for sure will take by storm also Europe, 100%. I
yeah,
am in UK
yeah.
right now, and I cannot tell you how popular it is. The electric version of the MG, which it is not anymore a British brand, is Chinese owned, and they
Hmm.
have price point so aggressive that it is incredible. Obviously, mileage is not great, charging time it is not great, but for first time users, it is fantastic. It is really fantastic, and
Yeah,
Cattle continues to invest into new power plants very, very aggressively. So yes, it is going to, but there isn't just lithium-ion batteries for renewable energy storage. I was looking also at gravitational batteries, which is fantastic. There is pumped hydro, which actually in Brazil, with maybe mini hydro, could be an interesting solution. Also, given the geography and also the weather condition, again, especially in the tropical part, in the north. So it is fascinating. To be honest with you, I bloody love my job because every day there is a new technology that it is coming out, not just on the storage side or the battery side, but also on the carbon capture side or on the hydrogen. It is just phenomenal. Zero hydrogen in Brazil, or they're doing something.
Yeah, they have the green hydrogen, right? There's a lot
Mm,
of noise in Brazil on green hydrogen, as
okay.
as there is in the world, but it's not a very mature technology yet. There's a very large. It's very capital intensive, super capital intensive. So I mean, it's starting. Brazil has a very strong agenda politically as well for green hydrogen, and even as a more as a potential export of the byproducts to Europe and help Europe kind of decarbonize. But I mean, it's still very early days, and I really don't have a kind of much clear opinion on that yet. I think let's
Mm.
see what happens. But yeah, it's there's a lot of noise in Brazil on green hydrogen.
And talking about, let's say, political and also obviously legislative activity that needs to be done. Since Lula came back, have you seen a difference? Did that help Nextron? Was it something that helped the change from Bolsonaro, which was a climate change denial and pro deforestation and other, let's say, not too progressive approaches?
I mean, to be very pragmatic and practical, it was under Bolsonaro that he was the one that signed the DG program in Brazil, the
Okay,
DG law,
okay,
which was being postponed for a very long time. So it was very instrumental what he did in order to kind of formalize uh, and create a law, right, regulating DG, and that gave the market a very strong kind of uh, uh, legal framework, which really was the catalyst to all these investments that have been made in DG. About over 170 billion reais has been invested in DG in the
wow,
past years, and much of that, a lot of that was since the law came out in early 2022. So it really incentivized. But I mean, with changing government here to there, that's always going to happen. But I mean, renewable energy is already what we say is supra-governamental, right? It's over government.
yeah,
It's an agenda that's over government. It's like it's needed, and you can't really do anything about it, but to incentivize and subsidize, of course, in an efficient manner, so there's no kind of market distortions. But
yeah,
I mean, it's over governmental. It's something that the world needs to really evolve in, and Brazil has a very strong potential to become one of the protagonists of disseminating and really abiding to the green and the net zero uh, mission and agenda that the world
targets,
has,
yeah,
right? So
yeah,
I'm really bullish, and I think Brazil should take this opportunity to really raise the flag and say, look, we're the most sustainable country in the world, and we're going to continue being the most sustainable country in the world, and we're going to invest in technology and sustainability, right, in order to keep progressing and not stagnate, and really become an example to the world in terms of sustainability, renewable energy,
energy
diversity
mix,
in,
yeah, grid intensity.
in its
Look,
energy mix, and
yeah,
exactly.
as I said, Brazil already it is definitely in the top 10 for one of the lowest carbon intensity in the grid. It is phenomenal. I think it's
Yeah,
around
Brazil has
60
the
to 80
highest. Brazil
grams
has
per kilowatt hour.
yeah, Brazil has 50%. Brazil has 50% uh, over the average global renewable energy matrix. Brazil is 50% above. So Brazil has 80% of his energy matrix is already renewable.
Wow. Yeah.
And the average,
Yeah.
the global average is 26
Yeah. Yes.
renewable energy penetration. So
Yeah.
we're already much
Yeah.
above and beyond. A lot of it is hydro, of course, which can also be debatable if it's that renewable because there's a high impact, environmental impact. So it's a bit debatable, and I sometimes debate myself on that. When you pass through these huge reservoirs, you see like how much it was deforested and its kind of
Yeah.
impact on the biodiversity, local biodiversity, and all that kind of stuff.
I
But I
know, but they
mean,
also
at the
last
end of the day,
100
it's a renewable
years.
energy source.
They also look.
Yeah,
I tend to
exactly.
look after since I started and I discovered the concept of life cycle assessment. I start to look at things just with the optic, with the angle of the entirety of the life of that project. So that hydropower plants, yes, it has deforested hectares of land. Fantastic. On the other hand, hydro turbines can last 100 years. So that means that that turbine and that power plant probably has produced, I don't know how many billions of kilowatt hours throughout the lifetime. So if you want to see the actual inside carbon intensity of that kilowatt hours, you have to arrive till the end of life of that hydroelectric power plant and divide it by the global warming or the deforestation, land use change that has been done. That's the way you should look at it. If you take that 10 gigawatt of hydro, 100 gigawatt, 1 terawatt, whatever it is, and see the damages that is made, but then it lasts 100 years, and then you put 10 gigawatt or a terawatt of solar, you still have damages. You still have the transportation. You still have to take into account the recycling of the solar panels. So it is, you never know. And what I can guarantee you is that in every single study that you do, when you take into account everything, there's always a surprise. Always, always, no matter
Yeah,
what.
yeah,
No matter
yeah,
what.
yeah. I think it depends on kind of the country by country, geography by geography.
Absolutely.
You really need
Absolutely.
to analyze the local impact of that and how that can impact local communities and
Absolutely.
whatnot. But I mean,
Yeah.
definitely, it's cheaper source. It's renewable source. It lasts for a long time, and I mean, it's much better than the alternative, right? Which is the pollutants,
Let
fossil
me
fuels
let
and
me
whatnot.
that is 100% true. It has to be tailored to that specific project. Let me ask you one thing.
Yeah.
What is next for Nextron? Am I gonna see you closer? Am I gonna see you to Europe? Are we gonna expand abroad?
Well, yeah. A lot of people ask me that. We're
Yeah,
still
of
very
course.
small, early stage,
I'm saying selfishly, so I don't
and
have
we
to
have
deal
a
with utilities anymore.
yeah,
So it is a very selfish
yeah.
question.
That's that's a dream, right? Nextron power globally.
Yeah,
But Brazil is such a big country. We have over
it's a
200 million
continent.
people. We
Yeah,
have continental space, geography, huge opportunity, national DG program, a lot of land and a lot of investors, a lot of capital, and very high energy prices. We have the third highest energy price in the world. So we have a very big challenge, and we really have the focus of becoming this kind of virtual utility in Brazil that kind of simplifies access to affordable clean energy, and that's kind of our mission right now. Of course, I was I'm I traveled all over. I lived all over the place, and of course, I would love to see Nextron go global, but I think there's still a lot of homework, a lot of consolidation to happen.
at
But of
home.
course,
Yeah,
that's a future dream. But first, we need to dominate home, and then once we do that efficiently and in scale, then for sure, there's a lot of opportunities all over the place: Latin America, Europe, US and Africa, you
Yeah,
name it.
yeah, the world. The world. Well,
Yeah,
Ivo,
exactly.
thank you, thank you, thank you. Muito obrigado for your time. This was very, very, very interesting, and I hope to have you again on the podcast. And congratulations! I really like what you guys and Nexon are doing.
Francisco, thanks so much for having me. It's a great pleasure to see you again after 12 years.
Yeah,
And
let's not wait 12 years,
you
okay?
know, anytime. Yeah, no, let's not. Invite you here to Brazil.
Done,
Check out the renewable energy scenario here.
done.
It's very, very, very interesting. And whenever you need, I'm here. And it's a pleasure. Congrats on the podcast. Great content, and look forward to coming back. And a presto, grande
Grazie,
amico.
grande, grazie
Ci
Ivo. You take
vediamo.
care. All right. Ciao,
Take care, Francesco. Big hug.
ciao.
Bye bye. Ciao.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Raw Green, brought to you by Obi, a sustainability consultancy firm specialized in life cycle assessment and decarbonization strategies. If you're looking to make an impact, a tangible and measurable one, reach out to us on our website at oneob.com or visit our social media. Links below in the description. See you at the next episode. Ciao.